Welcome back to the channel, everyone. We've got a good video today. Got the crew cab all set up. Got this for the backdrop. We're going to be deleting Fusible Links today, so let's go get that done and I'll show you exactly how to do it. So right here I've had some cables made up. Got some MIDI fuses, 40 and 60 amp. Got a mega fuse for the alternator, 175 amp. I'll explain why I went with that size during the video. And I've got the fuse block, which I've already got mounted up. So let's go check that out and I'll show you where I'm at. Here on the driver fender, I've got my fuse block that I'm going to be running the Fusible Links through, and then I've got my other external fuse block for a lot of my accessories. So I've cleared out a lot of room in here by unhooking everything from this fuse block. You can see right here I've got a bunch of stuff. Right here I've got a bunch of stuff. That's a project for another day to clean all that up. A lot of it's just a lot of bundled up wire because I didn't trim all the wire to the appropriate length because I didn't know how I was going to have this set up. But now that I know that, I can trim all that and clean it up. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Fusible Links, right here, this piece is what they call the duck foot. So there's a power source coming off of the battery in this larger wire, comes to the duck foot, and then branches off into 5 separate wires. Okay, and you'll notice one's quite a bit bigger than the others, but there's 5 of them here. And then there's one right here, which is the 6th one, okay? So I'm going to throw a diagram on the screen right now, and as I talk, I'll explain what this diagram is showing. So the diagram represents this duck foot, okay? There's 5 Fusible Links coming out of the duck foot and one that doesn't go through the duck foot. The diagram will show the gauges of the wire as well as the amperage of the fuse needed to run that wire. I've also included on there what each wire feeds within the cab, because remember, these Fusible Links are all part of the wiring harness into the cab, so they all control things that go in the cab, such as the radio, power windows, indicator lights, gauges. Anything that receives power in the cab is run through these Fusible Links. The only difference is this big green one goes to the alternator. So that's the big kind of different one. So as you can see, this power supply comes through the main harness of the engine bay. Okay, it comes all through here. I'm not going to use this factory power supply. So I'm actually going to try and weed that out of this factory harness. And I assume it is one of these 2 that goes to the positive terminal. I'm actually, instead of running that, I've got like I showed in the tailgate, I've got a cable made up that I'm going to run straight from the positive terminal over to the positive lug on this fuse block. So it'll have its own power source. Then if we look at the Fusible Links, you'll see all these wires right here, okay? And we have to trim them back to where it shows their respective colors. So you can see that one's pink and purple. There's one that's orange and white. There's one that's black. So we're going to have to cut all the wire between that colorful portion and the duck foot. We're going to have to cut it out. Right here you can see 2 relays that were mounted on the inner fender. I'm going to relocate those down to the inner fender and just keep them out of the way so I can have the fuse boxes right next to each other. All right, we're going to keep going on this. The lighting's a little bit different. I had to actually move the truck into the garage because we got a huge snowstorm. Anyways, we're going to keep going on these Fusible Links. So what I'm going to do now is unravel this, pull this power source out. We're not going to need that anymore because we're going to run one straight from the battery. And then we're going to come over to the Fusible Links, and I'll change the angle so you can see that better once we get there. And we're going to tap into those. We'll cut the old ones out and we'll connect into them, so we've got those wires all set up and ready to go. So first thing we're going to do is tear into this and see if we can pull this power source out. Here's the loom. This tape is nice and old and brittle. And I'm going to try and keep all this together as well as I can, because I don't want to create a mess out of this and make more work for myself. So that's the goal, is just to get that power source out without making a huge mess. Okay, so this is our power source right here. I'm going to throw a piece of tape on that. Just so I don't lose track of it. Anytime you can track a wire and keep track of it, you'll make less work and less potential to make an error and pull the wrong wire out. But you can see as I pull on that, that moves our Fusible Links. So that's the wire we're looking for. There it is. Okay, perfect. So, here's my positive terminal. This is the wire, and that may help you guys make it easier. If you've got, it looks like to be a 6-gauge wire. It's got this little probably fuse already in it, so that if this blows, it cuts off all power to that harness. So that's the wire. And I may, seeing that it's got this fuse already built into it, I may just cut this right here, slide it out, and solder a new eye connector on there, and just actually keep that as my power source instead of using some of the wire that I bought. So I'm going to cut this off and feed that out, and we'll go from there. Get my big cutters. Moment of truth right here. There we go. Okay, see if we can pull this. Turn you guys this way a little bit. Pull my piece of tape off so it can slide through here. And there it is. So yeah, I'm gonna I'll reuse this and just rehook an eye on here. Run that right to my fuse block for the Fusible Links. That'll work perfect. So you'll notice here, this is the duck foot. There's another wire coming in here feeding power, and this wire I just kind of looked at it off camera, but it runs through this relay. So that must be the ignition relay. And I can look in the factory service manual to make sure. But we're going to cut that off too. We got to get rid of the whole duck foot. Okay. I'm going to kind of get that out right here. Perfect. So we've got the duck foot completely cut. You can see there's a couple more fusible links that didn't go through the duck foot. We'll address those here in a second. But what we need to do, you can see here's a fusible link and it goes into this wire. So we need to cut all of these wires right before they connect into the fusible link. So I'm going to cut these and try and give me as much room as I can. There's one. 2, 3. I'm going to block your view for just a second to cut the alternator one. That's a 6-gauge wire, so that's going to take a wee bit more force. There we go. And then the last one is the pink one. There we go. Okay, so we're just going to leave this hanging out here for a minute. Alright, so we're going to cut both these off. Our duck foot is completely cut out, and there's all the fusible links except for that one that comes off the pink wire that doesn't go through the duck foot. So I'm going to cut that off right now too. Set that aside. So we got these 4 right here, and we got all the ones that go into the harness. Okay. So before I proceed, I'm actually going to wrap this back up just to keep it nice and tidy all together. I just hate having a mess and creating a mess as I work, so I'm going to tape all this back up. So I'll be back in just a second. There it is, all wrapped back up. And then we're not going to create a mess. You can see the 4 lone wires that we got to figure out what to do with. And we got the wires over here. So this is going to end part 1 of this video. In part 2, I'm going to connect everything, connect it all to the fuse block, put the battery back in and see if it starts. So stay tuned for part 2. Remember, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. I'll be posting a lot more content like this. Thank you for coming and visiting my channel. Thank you for commenting below and helping other people learn. We'll see you guys in part 2.